What's going on, Wacky Cat? We're going to have a little talk about the Game of the Year awards and Starfield and a little bit of Spider-Man too. Alan Wake 2 won several awards last night. They deserve it. Elevation. The media voted for him. The fans voted for him. Baldur's Gate 3, that's took over the whole Game Awards. They won everything. Rightfully so. They deserve it. And that's all you got to really say about that. Before 2023 started, there was only 2 games that everyone was raving about that was going to be big, huge. Now, Zelda was also in that talk, and Zelda won an award last night. Mario Wonder won an award last night. But the 2 games I'm talking about is Starfield and Spider-Man 2. If you was to ask a PlayStation guy or gal what's going to be the biggest game of the year, they'll say Spider-Man 2. If you're going to ask a Bethesda fan, a fan of Skyrim, of the Elder Scrolls series, they would say Starfield. And neither one of them won an award. They didn't win anything. Now, Spider-Man 2 was nominated for several categories. Didn't win. Starfield was just nominated by one category. Didn't win. They lost to Baldur's Gate 3. This is extremely disappointing. More for Starfield than Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 got its flowers in a weird way by at least being nominated by several categories. It at least got its respect. Starfield was barely getting the role-playing game of the year. I thought they was going to win it, but Baldur's Gate 3 is so powerful of a game. What went wrong with Starfield? Now, Bethesda is still one of the greatest game developers of all time. But they did miss the mark. They had to redeem themselves from Fallout 76. We thought they learned from their mistakes. One of the risks that they took with Fallout 76, it was online and glitches galore. We thought surely, Starfield is just going to redeem them and just blow us away. And the game was decent, if you ask me, but for some, they said it was boring, nothing to do, same old, same old. And I even made a video saying my frustration with the game. The way it was advertised with the direct, the hype about it. You thought sure it wouldn't fail. And it didn't fail. I mean, it made a lot of money. But the game, honestly, if you was to ask me or ask anybody which was the most game that was talked about negatively, hands down, it would be Starfield. The vision of Bethesda, Todd Howard and his team, wasn't really seen by most of us, if you ask me. They envisioned something, but when we got our hands on it, a lot of us couldn't see that vision. And that's going to be the question going forward with the Elder Scrolls series, because that's going to be that next big game, the new Elder Scrolls. They're going to have to figure out what was the disconnect. Now, I will give Bethesda credit, and this is growing pains, and it's just being brave. Bethesda is brave because they take risk with their games. And their games being produced for so very, very long, if the risks don't pay off, the scrutiny will be severe. The risk was, if you ask me, and all these are my opinions, the risk was having 1,000 planets. The risk was having procedural generated structures. The risk was not being seamless as you go in and out the planets. The risk was making this game really, really long. The risk was having these planets with nothing to do on them. There were so many risks involved. The thing about Starfield, this game is great, but the problem is there's so much different layers of blank space that's blocking you from getting to what's fun. They wanted the game to have a feel of massiveness, but the risk was having too many loading screens. The risk was stopping us from progressing. These things was not going to be accepted by the majority of the game community. And social media, the internet, went to town with the criticism. That's why Starfield wasn't a nominee for the Game of the Year. The Game Awards was not going to allow a game with so much criticism to be put as the Game of the Year. Because, and if you ask me, people will start to look at the Game Awards as losing its credibility. See, Starfield, in my mind, was the most hypest game of 2023. If there was an award for the best presentation of a game, the hypest game of the year, Starfield would have won that. But after the game comes out, we don't care about how hyped the game was. We don't care about your presentation, about how cool and great the game is. Now, the game is going to have to hold its own merits. The game is going to have to show what it can do. And though I didn't agree with Starfield not being as a nominee, the reality is, what's good at being a nominee if you still know you're not going to win? Because Starfield really didn't deserve to win the Game of the Year. In fact, here's the crazy part. If Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't a nominee for the Game of the Year, and Starfield was, Alan Wake 2 would have won the Game of the Year before Starfield. Possibly. If Alan Wake 2 wasn't in the running, the Zelda game would have won the Game of the Year. So it's not just Baldur's Gate 3 was so bigger than Starfield. It was that so many other games was so much powerful. Starfield took too long to get to its greatness. And I said this before, I said it too many times, but it's really sad. It's really disappointing. Bethesda was in the house. A lot of developers was at the Game Awards. Todd Howard. Now, make no mistake about it. Starfield is the game that they was putting on a mantle. But Bethesda and Xbox are successful as I don't know what. They're running the game. They're running gaming right now. Fallout got his own show. So make no mistake about it. But you know, if you ask me, you know that they possibly are feeling shocked and feeling down on themselves for like, dang, not only did we not get nominated but one time, but we're constantly getting criticized about how boring a game is. That's the worst thing that the game developer can hear. A video game is supposed to be the opposite of boring. It's either supposed to be relaxing, action-packed, exciting, interesting, but boring is the biggest insult you can give a game developer. And I've seen so many videos, so many comments said Starfield was boring. Was it boring to me? No, it wasn't boring, but there was, I don't know what type of lack of better terms. It was kind of stagnant. Now, stagnant is not boring, but at times you just walk around and you're like, okay. Spider-Man would have won the game of the year over Starfield. See, the hate, and some of it may be legitimate hate, criticism, that Starfield gained was so intense that it took away from what greatness it does have. And here's the crazy part. And this is just my personal opinion, and this is just me, personally. Every time I saw, because they advertised Starfield with the Xbox Game Pass commercial during the Game Awards, every time I saw Starfield, I kind of cringed a little bit. And I even had a thought in my head that if Starfield was to win the role-playing game of the year, could possibly there be boos in the crowd? That really thought in my head, like, if they was to win the role-playing game of the year, which they was nominated for, Starfield, if they was to win, I would not have been shocked if people would have started booing. That's how much criticism Starfield has gotten. Now, all is not lost, but it's hurting right now. And Bethesda, Todd Howard, they're going to dust themselves off, and I'm sure they kind of like, they may be in a not understanding, like, wow, why do they not like this game? They may be thinking in their head, was the loading screens that bad? Was the was the generated content that randomly showed up, even though it was the same facility over and over, was it really that intolerable? Was that really that bad? They're asking themselves that, and they're going to have to ask themselves that. To see Baldur's Gate 3 just dominate the Game Awards, I wonder if Bethesda's thinking to themselves, like, why? How did they do it? But that's going to make them better in the long run, because they're not going to quit. Bethesda is legendary for legendary games over the years. Their risk and their ambition kind of, if you ask me, ran wild, and they kind of lost their way. But they're going to find their way again. Their passion's not going to stop them, and I'm predicting that they're disappointed. But they're going to look at Baldur's Gate 3 and what they did, because genuinely Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't no fanboy deal. Baldur's Gate 3 won because of its elevation, far as the gameplay, far as the storytelling. Baldur's Gate 3 had the best storytelling of any game in decades. The fact that you can beat up your friend, you can do a bunch of crazy stuff, and you can knock your friend out, you can turn on, you can be the enemy, you can be evil in a way we never seen before. Those are elements that all gaming developers are going to need to take to propel themselves. Starfield included. Bethesda included. I'll say this again, all is not lost. Starfield today is being criticized, but the Starfield of tomorrow may be hailed as one of the greatest games of all time. Let me explain. The mods have not got their hands, the official mods have not got their hands on Starfield. Some people are saying, well, the game is not going to allow you to do certain things. I don't know. We don't know that yet. We don't 100% know that the way this game is made, the modders can't fix this or fix that. This game is going to get some it's going to get some brownie points for what it can be in the future with the mods. I think the mods are going to fix the loading screen situation. I think the mods are going to fix the constantly seeing the same facility, the same lab, the same abandoned place over and over again every time we see it. I think the mods are going to address that. I think the mods are going to make some of these planets have more people walking around. They're going to make it, you're going to get straight to the meat and potatoes rather than just the appetizer. These mods are going to heavily fix Starfield. And maybe not next year, maybe the end of next year, we're going to be talking about Starfield possibly as a awesome game, and we're going to be praising these modders. You got to think about it now. They said Starfield has more dialogue than Skyrim and Fallout put together. We can't get to that dialogue because it's just so much empty space. It is a bunch of empty space. It don't fit. If they could, the modders can make the transition between to stop all these loading screens, even though I don't know if they can do that without breaking the game, but we shall see. Starfield, it is disappointing, man. But as we look forward to the next innovative games, Grand Theft Auto 6 and other games, The Witcher game coming out, I think the Game Awards this year in particularly, in my opinion, has made a statement to the gaming, to all the developers. We don't care if your game is an indie game. We don't care if your game's a AAA game. Your game is going to have to elevate, innovate. You're going to have to cater to the fans. You're going to have to give the gamers what they want. You're wasting your time in reality if you just make a passion project for your own fulfillment. Not to saying Bethesda did that, but I'm saying is you have the vision of doing this and doing that, but you have to ask yourself, are these players going to enjoy this? But it's risk they take, and risk has to happen in order for the gaming industry to develop itself. And Baldur's Gate 3 took the right risk. They couldn't lose last night. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Starfield is still my game of the year. Starfield, one of the funnest games I played. But I can see where the frustration has came in. I can see why they didn't win the game of the year. I can see why they wasn't nominated. And but we still haven't got the DLC of Starfield. This game still has a lot of life in it, but we shall see. Cyberpunk got its flowers later on down the line. Cyberpunk was criticized like crazy. These real huge, massive open world games do get their flowers later on, years after they get released. No Man's Sky is getting its flowers. No Man's Sky is still winning awards. No Man's Sky was criticized like crazy when it came out because the promises. But now look at No Man's Sky now. Starfield, Bethesda shouldn't hold their head too low because they can do what No Man's Sky did. They can do what Cyberpunk did. Yes, the criticism came, but we can fix it. We can fix it. We can turn this around, and they did. So maybe, just maybe, the 2024 Game of the Year Awards will have Starfield still, because some of these games that have came out the previous years can still win awards, like the best support, the community support. I mean, that's what I like about the Game Awards. They still have awards where even the games that might have won't all that good, the redemption story. Cyberpunk is a redemption story. No Man's Sky is a redemption story. Starfield, can that be a redemption story? I'm hoping so. And hey, we shall see. Well, anyway, I'm Wacky Cat. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'm out.